Very welcome to RaithTV. Give us a wee bit of an introduction for those who might not know you. What's your role here at Raith Rovers?
Ruaridh Kilgour. I'm one of the directors of the club. Have been since May 2023-24. I'm probably the quieter Kilgour brother. Most people will be familiar with Graham, who's the business development manager. But that's been 2 years now. 2 years since we last spoke on RaithTV, and enjoying it most days. Stressful other days, but overall it's a privilege to be in this position and enjoying it.
Rover supporter since birth. DNA in the family.
Yeah, unfortunately too young to remember the glory days of the earlier mid-90s. Started following about 1998, 1999. But yeah, like I said, privileged to be in this position and hopefully can bring some success back to the club.
Well, we're really thankful for your time. I was thinking about how we use this time because we can't go over every minute detail of the past couple of years. So what I'd like to see us get out of the session on behalf of my fellow supporters is a bit of a look at what are the next steps on and off the field, what have we got to look forward to, what's chapter 25, 26 going to look like. What about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, we put together the strategy document. I think what that was to do was to show supporters what we have planned, but also just what we're thinking about. We came in 2 years ago. We came in with a lot of big plans. We've executed on a lot of those plans. We obviously came very close in our first year on the pitch of achieving promotion immediately. That was never part of the plan. But it is part of the plan in the next 3 to 5 years, and that's something that we need to work towards, and we'll probably touch on it in this interview, but that's a big challenge. There's a big challenge there financially, and I think that's where there's a lot of work that has to go on behind the scenes to try and do what we can to bring money onto the pitch to give ourselves the best chance of success.
Let's start by looking at the focus that you mentioned just in your introduction. You're a board member.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of change.
Yeah.
Tell me a wee bit about the group who are round about you. Tell me about the drive. Tell me about the motivation and indeed the skill set that these lads own.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. As a supporter, you never really appreciate the work that goes on behind the scenes with volunteers, but also with directors who are, in theory, they're volunteers as well. They're volunteers who are in a privileged position to be running the football club, but they're still volunteers nonetheless. But I mean, the group's good. There has been a lot of change, like you've touched on. I think when I first came in, or when we came in as a group in 2023, it was a group of 8. It's now a group of 5, and 4 of those are the ones that were back in that group in 2023-24. And yeah, there's been a lot of change, probably more so last year with Stevie, David and Andrew departing. Andrew departing as chief executive as well, and at the time that happened, we all said that we think we can run the club. We don't think we need a replacement CEO, and that still sticks just now. We think we're doing a good job of being able to run the club as a group of directors. We've got a great group of staff as well that work day to day, so there's no immediate plans for a replacement CEO. In terms of the rest of the board, churn is normal. I remember John Sim telling me that the average time of a championship director is around 2 seasons, and we see that as well. Even when we're visiting clubs or clubs are visiting us, it's often new faces, and we've even seen in the last few weeks a lot of change at other clubs. There's still a space on the board for Starspar Properties, and that's always been the case since we agreed to deal with John Sim. David Sinton was in that position before, but we're sure at some point John's going to want to take back that position, especially with the situation with the pitch, which I'm sure we'll get to as well.
We most certainly will. You continue to work closely with John Sim, and we've chatted with him quite recently. What's that relationship like? You are pulling in the same bigger direction. What's it like day to day?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, this is what we always say is Raith Rovers, to be successful, needs a good John Sim. And I think that is absolutely the case, and we say that to him very regularly. And like what I was saying about how the average time of a board member is only 2 years, there's someone there who's been doing this for 20 years. He's seen everything that you could possibly see at a football club, and so there's a lot that we can learn from him, because even within our group there's some inexperience. I've never run a football club before, and I've only been in the role for 2 years, and Dean McKenzie, obviously he's got a lot of experience from what he did at Kelty, Alan Halliday at Dundonald Bluebell, but John's the one who has the most experience of running a football club, so it's really important that we have a very good relationship with him, especially also because he does own the stadium, so any work that we need to do here, we need to run it by him, and he needs to be on board.
As supporters, we always think we know the answers. Often we aren't able to back that up with how you fund these answers. Yeah. Are there any skills missing from the group? Is there any opportunity there in particular areas?
I think one place we would like to add is a financial director. So David Sinton was kind of taking that responsibility last year. He stepped down. John still helps out a lot in terms of the financial side of it, but I think having a financial director that's kind of with us day to day would be beneficial. I think there's other positions that we maybe haven't even considered, like for example, even I came in from a digital perspective, something that the club had never had. So if there's people who kind of have a skill that we would benefit from, have time that they can dedicate to it, and even if they've got finances they can put in, then that's obviously welcome as well. But we are open to more people joining. There's a group of 5 just now. There's a Start Spark property space, and then there's probably another 2 spaces that we can allow on the board.
You mentioned that churn. I know alongside that your passion's never waned. When we look 5, 10, 15 years down the road, what would you want your legacy to be, personally?
I mean, I think promotion to the Premiership is something I've always wanted, because I've been going to games since the late 90s, and there's been some really bad times in that period, like the Claude Nelka years and other ones in between. And I think on the pitch, obviously being part of the group that can bring Raith Rovers back to the Premier League, because I think we do have a place in that division. We should have a place in that division. There's no reason why we shouldn't. Is something that I would love to achieve. But also just, I think, the infrastructure, improving the infrastructure. The club's over 140 years. It's going to be here long after I'm finished with the football club. So making sure that whatever we do, we leave it in a better place than what we came in at. And I think also with that is also engaging more with the community, younger supporters. It's something that John even said himself before we came in, that he wanted to improve. He noticed that we did have an ageing support. You could see declining attendances. So I think we have done a good job in being able to bring in younger people to the games, increase the attendances. Because you know what it's like, once you come in at maybe 5, 6, 7 years old, you could be hooked for life, and there's a value to that as well. I mean, there's a lifetime value of a supporter that we've never been able to quantify, that also benefits the people who are going to be custodians of this football club long after I'm finished.
I'm turning my notebook up a little bit there, because infrastructure's the next heading I've got, and I'm trying to keep my questions to myself here so that you can give us your kind of real-time reaction. Let's look at infrastructure. The big subject around the town is the pitch. We knew that there was an application going in for funding. Give us an update, making the assumption that it's not been successful given there's nothing happening out there.
Yeah, so the pitch gets tested every year, and as part of a FIFA test, passed for next season. But we've been told there's a good chance it'll fail for the following season. There was a grant funding available from the SFA this summer, which we and a number of other clubs applied for, to put down a new plastic surface. It's going to cost in the region of about £400,000. We applied for a grant to cover 60% of that. We were quite hopeful, as were other clubs, and it was rejected just 2 weeks ago. And I think the reason being is just the fact that they do not want to give funding for plastic pitches because of the new ruling in the Premiership. So we weren't the only one to be rejected. So it looks like we're going to have to fund it ourselves. It's not something we have to worry about this summer, obviously, but it's definitely something hanging over us for next summer.
We really are caught between a rock and a hard place, aren't we? Trying to get into a league that we've not been in since 96, 97.
Yeah.
Trying to make the stadium alive. You know, shortly have about 300 kids out there playing on it, but not getting the funding to move forward at either side.
It's difficult because they've gone from kind of zero to full on banning the pitches, which just seems, I mean, from my perspective, very unreasonable. There could have been a middle ground there where you just say, look, you have to renew your pitch every 3 or 4 seasons, and we'll see how that goes before we make a decision to ban them, because of the implications of that are, like you say, I mean, look at the community use that we get in Starts Park, and to lose out on that just for the sake of getting to the Premiership is painful. On top of that, we'd have to go and find another training ground, which has a cost. We'd have to hire more groundsmen, which there's a cost. And so there's all of these pieces on top of the actual cost of having to change to a grass surface. And to be honest, it'll be interesting to see what happens next year with Falkirk and Livingston. So the perception could change next season. I mean, a lot of our players said that the Falkirk surface was one of the best that they played on last year, because it is a brand new plastic pitch, and it just feels so backwards that you've got Tottenham playing Bodo Glimt in the semi-final of the Europa League on a plastic surface. You're allowed a plastic surface in the Italian Serie A and the French Ligue 1, but for some reason the Scottish Premiership, they just don't allow it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next year. Is there a chance of a reversal? Who knows? There might be, considering we're going to have 2 clubs in the Premier League with a plastic pitch and a new one at that.
Are discussions ongoing at a kind of structural level, but also between clubs? Because I guess there is a wee bit of kind of suck it and see that we're looking to see how Livy and Falkirk going. Yeah,
that's the big thing, is seeing how they go. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Falkirk and Livy. If we've heard from Falkirk that they're definitely going to be kind of flying the flag for plastic pitches when they go up, and doing what they can to support clubs like ourselves. I think there's only going to be 2 plastic surfaces in the Championship now, which kind of loses out a little bit on our league of the kind of representation of fighting for it. But yeah, I mean, we're just going to have to wait and see. There's obviously, it's pie in the sky stuff to kind of hope for a reversal. We can't obviously plan based on the potential of a reversal. So from our perspective, we're just focused on how we can get another plastic surface relaid next summer. And obviously, if we make it into the Premiership, then that's almost a good problem to have, that we can look at putting grass down.
We're going to cover lots of topics that I guess we, as I said in the introduction, we want to focus on the here and the now in the next chapter, but the pitch is one where we could speculate for an hour just on that. I know it's something we'll come back to across the course of the season, and we were chatting as we're getting set up that there's a will for us to continue this type of communication.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we said when we came in that communication was key, and I think we have backed that up. Obviously, Andrew was the one that was taking on a lot of these responsibilities, and so the rest of the board have kind of pushed me to the front to kind of to go and do the next one. But yeah, I mean, there's always, just like the strategy document, just like the social media statements and all of that sort of stuff, we do want to be as transparent as possible, because we know how important it is for supporters to hear what's going on.
Let's keep on infrastructure. The newest project is the club shop.
Yeah.
Talk us a wee bit about what's going on there.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're looking at creating a new club shop. The existing club shop is just a bit too small. It's a bit too crowded. The kind of set up in the office just didn't really accommodate for it. I think if we can get a proper club shop where supporters can walk into, kind of roam around, look at items, there's obviously an increase in revenue there, especially on match day. I mean, we've seen at other clubs, Ayr United being a good example, where they've got this new kind of club shop and new sports bar area, just how busy these things can be on match day, especially when you've got increased attendances. So the plan is to increase the size of it, get more stock in there, and hopefully increase revenue off the back of that.
You're talking about communication, and a lot of this discussion I heard kind of first time coming down on behalf of RaithTV when you met as a board with all of the supporters groups, and there was discussion about the possibility of a standing area over in the disused part of the railway stand. Give us a wee bit of the context, what's involved, what's the next steps.
So we looked at the railway stand. I mean, I've always, even as a fan, I've always heard that the problem with the railway stand's the roof. The problem's the roof, and that's a costly exercise to replace. But it's not the roof. It's there's other aspects of the railway stand, safety of basically also the kind of the mount of the stand, the old seating area. So the idea is to basically every second row fill up with concrete and create a terracing area across the whole of railway stand up to the bit where the north stand section, and we reckon we could probably get about 1,000 supporters in there. So yeah, we looked at it. It does seem possible at a reasonable cost. We reckon between £60,000 and £80,000 it would cost to do, which we do feel is reasonable. But the problem is, with the latest news about the pitch, it's something that we're just going to put on hold a little bit, but it's definitely something we want to do. I mean, when we put that strategy document out, the most excitement we saw on the document was the railway stand. I think there's a real nostalgia feeling around that stand. I mean, it's the first stand that I sat in as a supporter. It's the best view in the whole of Starch Park is from that stand. I think also being able to have supporters in kind of each side of that end of Starch Park would be fantastic for the players. If we make it into the Premier League, then having a kind of packed south stand, a packed main stand, and that area full as well would be fantastic. So it's something we want to do, but it's just, given the situation with the pitch, it's something we're probably just going to have to put the brakes on just now. An
extension of that is, cometh that moment in time where there are bodies back in that bit of the railway stand. I guess I'm going to use that as a bridge to speak about the young team, the Raith Ultras, and how we acknowledge the value in their support, their noise, their engagement, their energy, and how we counterbalance that with the detrimental bits of damage, of reputational damage as well as physical damage, particularly when we're on the road. Can you tell us a wee bit about how the club are reaching out, the new season ticket process, what you see is the pros and the cons, and what's clearly going to be a journey rather than a one-hit wonder? Yeah, I mean, you can go all the way back to when we first came in, where we've been trying lots of different things. I mean, you remember that first Dunfermline League Cup game back in that season, where we had the singing section over in the railway stand, and that was the first kind of experiment of it, and a few other experiments ran that season. The challenge is you can't run many experiments because of season tickets. You can't, so when you run these experiments, it tends to be during the cup games at home. So we did a few experiments that first season. Second season we didn't do many experiments, but a new group started to form down the front without the kind of approval of us as a club.
it's very difficult to manage that when there's no kind of communication there. So we were very quick to try and see how can we communicate and how can we engage with these guys, because what we found is, while there were a lot of negatives and we got a lot of feedback from supporters, which were completely fair, there was also a lot of positive feedback from other supporters about the noise. The atmosphere improved at Starch Park in the second half of the season. The players loved it as well. The players were very vocal in telling us that it makes a huge difference for them at Starch Park. So at that point, we're looking at how can we engage with these guys and how can we build a relationship to stop the kind of negatives that come alongside with a group like that. And also it's important to say that it's not just the Raith Rovers, there's a lot of other clubs that are experiencing similar across Scottish football. So Grace, Laura and myself, we met with two of the guys who are a part of that group, who are considered the leaders of the group. They were very good. They stressed that they don't want to cause any problems at Starch Park. They just want to build a good atmosphere at Starch Park. And so the angle that we went at is there's things that they want from the club to help them grow as a group. So we looked at that, and that's things like getting more flags, drums, merchandise. And we thought, right, if we create a fund for them that we can put a little bit of money into as well, we can sell their merchandise in the club shop. All profit goes back into their fund. But with that fund that we manage, if there's any damage caused or anything, any costs incurred from their group, then that comes straight out of the fund. So that created a bit of accountability. We also made it an official membership, so you had to register to be part of the group. That then meant via fan base we were able to get the names and addresses of everyone in that group. The benefit for them is we can now organise them things like bus travel to away games, and we can then separate that so that anyone going on that bus is part of the group. And that also benefits them in being able to get to away matches, and it also means that we've got the names and addresses of everyone on the bus as well. So it was just a bit of accountability that we needed to create with them. They've been really good with us. So there's a separate section next season, which is where they were last season, but it's going to become an official section. A couple of rows will be shut off behind them to stop obstructing view of any supporters behind them. So it's a trial for one season. As I said, these things have to run for a season because you can't trial it in occasional games, and we just hope that it can work well, benefit the football club, maybe attract more support. I think it was Ian Latto's video recently on the social media when he was bringing his wee boy along to games. His wee boy just he's just stared and watching all the ultras all game, because that's what kids of that age, that's what attracts them to football, is the atmosphere and watching these things. So hopefully it can serve as a positive for the club, but it's a trial, and it's a trial for one season, and we're welcome to feedback as soon as fans kind of experience this new group.
As older supporters can often quickly forget that your best time in your supporting career is often when you're in your teens and your early 20s and you're travelling home and away, and it's really character building stuff. Have you experienced the kind of sense that people will quickly jump to pick fault, but this won't work and that won't work, but over a season hopefully these will kind of iron out, might be one step forward, two back, but there's a will on both sides, are you saying?
Yeah, I mean, we did that survey, it must be February, March time, and I think there was a lot of negative feedback about the group, but in the same token, 80% of people wanted the group to work. So it's been important to try and find a way for it to work, but it is also important to say we don't want this to be at the detriment of other fans. So we are stuck in between a rock and a hard place a little bit. It's a trial for a year. We do want feedback. If it does become to the point that a lot of fans stop coming back because they just aren't enjoying the experience at Starch Park anymore, then that's something we'll need to review for the following season.
Let's come to kind of operational matters. Where are we in terms of budget setting for what we're all drawn to most importantly is putting lads on the pitch that will deliver? What's that looking like in terms of in comparison to recent years? So
last year the budget increased on the first year. I think if you look at where we were at the start of the season, I would have probably said our budget would have been, I mean, it's impossible to know, but you'd guess around 4th, 5th or 6th in the league. I think by the end of the season it was probably more 7th or 8th, and that was put in the document. And I think the reason why we think it changed so much is because there was a lot of change at other clubs. Like I think Dunfermline and Hamilton's squad got to a size that was way bigger than ours, and so I think we would have probably dropped below that level. This season it's a good budget. Again, I would probably put it in the 5th or 6th level. It's really difficult in the Championship financially. This is going to be the first year since I think 2021-22 when we've got two clubs that have dropped down from the Premiership. They will have both come down with around 1.5 million just in prize money. St Johnstone will get, I think, around a 300,000 parachute payment. Ross County will get a 500,000 parachute payment. To put that into context, we got about £330,000 for finishing 5th. Even if we'd finished 2nd, for example, that would have just been 650,000. So it doesn't really scratch the surface with the money that we're getting compared to what they're coming down with. So that puts in a bit of kind of context of why we'll be a little bit lower than some of the other teams in the league. But it doesn't mean to say that our ambitions are 5th in the league or 6th in the league. I think you look at that first season and there's absolutely no chance that we had a budget second highest in the league, yet we pushed Dundee United until the end of the season. So I think that came from a blend of good recruitment, a good culture within the squad, and I think there's no reason why we can't do that again this year. It's just try to be creative, try and be innovative. How can we increase the budget? How can we be innovative commercially to bring in more money to increase the budget? But then also with the existing budget, how can we work it hard to make sure we're getting better players with value rather than going for a lot of the kind of usual names that other clubs will be bidding high amounts for.
That aspect of football is what brings us back, isn't it? Being aspirational, pulling a rabbit for the hat, finding that extra sign, and just you're hitting on the kind of gold dust of a partnership that works.
Yeah, spot on, yeah.
What about things like bringing in extra money? One of the things that we see pushed new, I guess, around these parts is things like naming rights of the ground. We've got interest, we're chasing that down because it clearly sends a message that we're open to any idea. Yeah,
I mean, we've got a commercial inventory where we look at, and we're always looking for creative ways that we can sell advertising space for the stadium. One of those is the naming rights of the stadium. I think I looked at it last night. It was 6 of the 10 clubs in our league last year have sold the naming rights to their stadium, so it's not something unusual in Scottish football at the moment. We're open to it. I think with that, it has to be the right partner. It also has to be something that supporters are consulted on as well. I think this is one of those decisions that it's not just about how much money we can get, it's also making sure we protect the brand of the club. What we want to do is make sure that any partner that comes in, we still retain Starks Park as part of the name, and a lot of clubs have done that, so we kind of sponsor at Starks Park. But yeah, there's a lot of money to be made there. The fact that other clubs are doing it in our division, you don't want to fall behind. It's a way that you can bring in revenue. And I think with the increased exposure that we've managed to build around Raith Rovers, if there is attraction there, it's just making sure that we find the right partner.
As a board, if you spoke about, I guess, where we are at this moment in time with regards to Championship football, we've got one guaranteed promotion place. We've got, people rightly say it's the most competitive league in the country. But do you throw financial amounts of money that you can't sustain to get that space and fail? I really worry for the future of the Championship. When we look around just now and we see, and absolutely no point scoring in this question, but we look at Dunfermline losing significant money over the last couple of years. But we'll look at Inverness going from the Premier League down. We've got Hamilton, we'll look at Morton. Partick Thistle are working through challenges just now. Do you speak about that wider context of there's a glimmer of hope, but the teams who've gone up this year, you've got a kind of generationally excellent Falkirk, and you've got Livingston who've done something not as easy as it sounds, and they've made very good use of that money that they had.
Yeah, I mean that's it. You look at it, so you've got Livingston came down the year before, they went back up, albeit they went up through the playoffs, and then before that you've got Dundee United, before that I think Dundee, then Kilmarnock, then Hearts. So usually the team that comes down will go back up, and it's because of the amount of money that they come down with that I touched on. It is very challenging. We know that the playoffs are heavily balanced towards the Premier League team. We got very close, we fell short ultimately. And you look at it and go, right, if we can just aim for 4th, we get in with a shot of that. But then statistically, you look at it and go, how many times has the team in 4th place actually achieved it? I think it's 0, I think usually it's a team that finishes 2nd that could potentially do it. So yeah, it's very difficult, but we just have to accept that's where we're at and just make sure that we do not in any way get caught up in, right, they're spending that, so we need to try and find a way to spend that. I think there's a lot more investment opportunity in the Championship. There's a lot of people looking at that. I think in Scottish football in general and in England, I think there's a bit of a Wrexham effect just now where I was looking at, I think a third of the EFL clubs are owned by American owners. We do get inquiries now and again. It's not something we're interested in at this stage. But yeah, I mean, you look at Livingston getting Calvin Ford and Dunfermline getting investment. There's a lot of clubs in the Premier League getting investment. I think a lot of that comes from, if you can get up there, there's then 5 European spaces now because of the Conference League, and I think a lot of these teams will fancy their chances of getting that, which obviously increases the overall revenue for the club and the value for the club.
We must caveat that realism by saying we're going to roll our sleeves up and have a right good go, aren't we?
Oh, of course. I mean, that's what we want. Like, we want to do whatever we can to try and get the club back into the Premier League, but fans will appreciate that. You never do it at the prospect of risking the club itself. So, yeah.
Let's talk cooperation agreements. It's a brand new structure that's came in place. It's created interest, panic, worry, enthusiasm in equal measure. Where are Raith Rovers at with the wider subject? And I'm going to ask you specifically about the advertised connection potentially at Glasgow Rangers.
Yeah, so I mean, I think most supporters will know exactly what the cooperation agreement is, but for those that don't, it's a new initiative from the SPFL with the idea being to develop young players with basically a flexible way of moving from a loan perspective. So we first heard about this probably tail end of last year, and then it's become a bit more popular in conversation in the last 2 months as clubs are starting to now look at who they could potentially partner with. If I'm being honest, it's not up kind of one of John Potter's priorities right now. There's a lot of other things going on, like just basically building a squad through the transfer window, but completely out of the blue, Rangers contacted John and asked him to go for a meeting at Murray Park with Niles Coppin, the then technical director. Niles spoke to John and they said that they'd pinpointed Raith Rovers as someone they would like to have a partnership with to develop their young players. The reason they chose us was they noticed an increase in crowds, which they like. They like that for developing their players. They like the fact that we've got a technical director. They like the work that we have done with Finlay Pollock in developing him. And also they'd watched games and they said that they really like Barry's style of play and think that would be a good style of play to develop their players. So that was the first conversation that they had. They then came to Start Park the week after to have a look around and see what the facilities are like, which again they were really impressed. And then the way it was left was that we asked them to basically come up with a proposal of what this could look like, and they saw this as bigger than the cooperation agreement. So the rules in the cooperation agreement is the player must be Scottish and he must be aged between 16 and 21. They saw this as something that they could potentially send us other players, so players who were maybe a bit older than 21 and also players who weren't Scottish. Now, as I say, it was left with a proposal from Rangers. The way we will then approach that is decide on 3 factors. So number 1 will be a football factor, where Barry and John would make a decision based purely on the football side of it. We as a board would make a financial decision on it about basically how this can help us with our budget in terms of what the cost would be to bring these players, or maybe they would be free, who knows. And then finally, and most importantly, there'd be a kind of brand perspective where we would put it to supporters, because this is one of those decisions where we feel supporters should be consulted on. And the reason for that is we know that some supporters will not like the potential to be partnered with another clubs. They might not like the partnership with another club. And so we would present all the facts, we'd present the opinion of Barry, we'd present the opinion of us as a board, and we would let the supporters make the final decision, as we've kind of promised through multiple ways over the last 2 years, that it's really important that fans aren't involved with every decision, but there are certain decisions around the kind of the brand of the club that are really important for fans to be consulted on. So just the kind of overall update is there's no official proposals been sent. Rangers have obviously gone through a takeover. Niles Coppin, who was the technical director, he's no longer at Rangers, so nothing has happened in the last maybe 3 or 4 weeks. But if anything does happen, we'll keep supporters updated.
And there is a kind of dual opportunity in that the ordinary loan deals are still there, in terms of, if we think of Finlay in particular, who, is not a person's stood or sat in this stadium who doesn't hold him in the highest regard, but there are still opportunities to work beyond that cooperation agreement.
Yeah, absolutely. So this doesn't change anything in terms of other loans. I think Finlay's a good example because he wouldn't be eligible for a cooperation agreement next season. I think the rule is that for the 21-year-olds, they've got to be born in 2005 or younger. I think Finlay's 2004. So even if Hearts were to partner with another team, he wouldn't be able to be part of that cooperation agreement. So there's absolutely no reason why we can't still go and get a player on loan from any other club, even if that's not the club that we've partnered with.
Let's come to maybe your real comfort zone, the digital world. You're a digital lead on the board. Talk to us a wee bit about the trajectory that we've had as a club. The original mantra was that we're going to do it our way. If it's different, we're comfortable with that. I think we've gave a few black eyes and we've certainly took a few body blows as well. What's your reflections?
It's good fun. It's funny, I was reading a tweet yesterday from a Falkirk fan that was angry that we'd arranged a pre-season friendly with him because of the cartoon last year, which can only make me laugh. But no, I mean, we did say we wanted to be different. We wanted to be innovative. there's a risk there. Again, you keep going back to brand, but you've got to make sure you protect the Raith Rovers brand and don't just turn it into a joke. I think also when you take this approach, there's always a risk that you can sometimes go too far. And I like to think that we've not gone too far yet. Well, I say yet, as we obviously don't want to go too far at any time. But I think it's been good fun. I think our supporters have really enjoyed it. I think the funny thing for me with a cartoon is it winds up opposition fans, but then there's something quite embarrassing about being wound up by a cartoon. And I think that's where it does quite well. Is it's quite clearly a joke. So yeah, it's been good fun, and there's absolutely no plans of stopping it anytime soon. And also, to be honest, we take it when we get it as well. And I think what we've seen last year is a lot of other clubs adopt a similar kind of way of operating social media, and like I'm all for that as well. The more clubs that do it, the better, because it's a good laugh. And just like anything in football, what goes around comes around. Everything goes in cycles. There's going to be moments when we can wind up fans of other teams, and they'll maybe get one over on us at another time.
We do acknowledge that when fans and admins of other teams actually give us a bloody nose, we say fair play.
Yeah.
Is there any that stand out where you've thought, yeah, that's quite clever?
I liked the one Partick Thistle on the final day when they had a joke about us kind of not making the playoffs, but that was actually in response to a joke we'd made when Dylan Easton scored earlier in the season. I think it might have even been the 1-0 game at the start. And then when they got knocked out in the playoffs, we got them back again. So it's just that's what I like, is
It's hit the right tone.
Yeah, exactly, and it goes throughout the season as well, which makes it good fun.
I would have to single out Livingston when on the day I think that we had the Oasis like poster of the lads for the kids to pick up pre-match, and they cleverly went and turned their goal scorers into a blur wee Oasis. It's good stuff, isn't it?
Exactly, it's a test of creativity as well. Like you say, it's good. I'm all for it, and we'll definitely not be stopping anytime soon.
Does engagement in that manner equate to cash coming into the club? Is it just profile? What's the tangible benefit?
Yeah, it's difficult to measure. I mean, there's obviously increased exposure will bring in more eyeballs, more sponsorship, and we had our second digital sponsor last year with Audio Motion, which was fantastic, and that was, I say it was a record fee for digital. We'd only ever had one before, but it was higher than the first one. We also have had inquiries from nationwide companies about sponsoring digital, because obviously it goes out to the nation instead of just going out to a local area. So it could attract sponsors that you wouldn't otherwise get with advertising around the ground or such like. So yeah, it definitely does benefit. It's hard to put an actual tangible value on the benefit of it. But there's also, I mean, you just don't know how much of a positive impact it has on bringing more fans in from the local area, because it's good for Raith Rovers to have a little bit of a swagger now and again. I think that can be quite good at attracting young people to come along. So there is that benefit as well.
Let's talk about very practical football things. New strips, when are they arriving?
Yes.
When can we throw some money at you? And give us a teaser, what they're like.
So I think beginning of July is when they should go on sale. There was a little delay. I think they arrive next week, and so the kind of campaign will all be created around that. In terms of a teaser, I guess you could say that the away shirt is going to be going down a similar route of the away shirt in 2023-24, where it's similar to one of another club that a lot of people will recognise.
What about the process of design? It always fascinates us. We've gone from the days of they just turn up to some clubs do a kind of poll of what the favourite design is. How does it work at Starks Park?
To be honest, I wasn't over it for the new ones this season, but basically I think it's just a case of we get sent quite a lot of designs from Joma. We kind of set a criteria of what we want it to look like, and they'll come back with options, and then it's a case of just picking what we think that the favourite option is. So it's nothing too exciting for this season's shirts.
Last season with Joma, this one?
Yes, it's currently this will be the second year of the contract. Yes, for the final year.
Is there a sharp intake of breath when you hit that live button on the strip reveal in whatever format that takes? You think, is this going to fly or bomb?
That's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it. So we'll be nervous when we do that in July.
Ruaridh, tell us a wee bit about pre-season. We expect that the interview will go out after the supporters all know, but there's been a wee change in the 3 games that we've got lined up.
Yeah. So the Stirling Albion game has changed. So it was maybe at Starks Park on the Saturday. It's been changed because of police operational reasons. So we're now playing Linlithgow Rose away on that day. So that means that we've got Linlithgow Rose, Alloa and Falkirk as our kind of pre-season lineup.
I always feel, sometimes you see movies and there's the angel and the devil in one shoulder, and it's a bit like that. When I sit here, I think of the Rovers supporter on the shoulder saying, ask about players, man, come on, ask about players. Let's talk about recruitment. We come into the season on the back of a long unbeaten run, and we retain more than the spine of a really good squad. We've seen Jay come in.
Yeah.
Where are we at in terms of progress? Because the rolling news of who's coming in the door, when's that pen gift coming out, is at fever pitch.
I know, you're spot on. We finished the season very, very well. Most people know the stats, but I think in the last 10 games of the season, we're top of the league on form, and that doesn't mean anything in terms of promotion, but what it does mean is we've got a strong core of a squad, because a lot of the players that were part of that starting 11 across most of those games have been retained for next season. So it's just a case of adding in the key positions that we want to add in. And there's no rush. Like, that is very important that we don't rush into things. We see it on the other side as well. Players are in absolutely no rush as well. They want to wait out and see what their options are. A lot of them are on holiday at this moment in time as well. So we know exactly what positions we need to strengthen in. We've obviously added Jay, who's a really exciting signing. Someone a bit different, is a different kind of name from a different background, and I think that's excited a lot of supporters as well. And I think that just shows the kind of, I guess you could say, the creativity and innovation of where we are looking for players now. Instead of just looking in the same kind of pool as everyone else, we're trying to be a little bit different and see what other talent is out there.
Sitting in this seat, the buzz for a long time was interviewing managers and saying, what's your style of play? And now it's about asking, what's our recruitment strategy?
Yeah.
How are we identifying players? What does it look like in terms of the scouting system and how we're bringing lads in?
So John Potter obviously leads the overall recruitment strategy as technical director. So Barry's got his way of wanting to play. We take that style of play, and then you look at all the different positions within that kind of style of play. Each position's given a profile that Barry will set, and basically looking at exactly what he wants from each position. We've got 2 recruitment analysts and also a number of scouts as well. So basically the player profiles will be given metrics. So we'll take exactly what Barry wants in a certain position, put metrics alongside that. They'll then create an algorithm to identify how strong these players are based on the metrics, and then we'll take that algorithm and apply that to the leagues that we're looking in. So there's obviously all the leagues within Scotland, there's leagues in England, and then there's leagues in Northern Ireland, Wales, Republic of Ireland as well that we're looking at. So the recruitment data analysts will take that, the player profiles with the metrics, look into these divisions and create basically what is a long list of players that match exactly the profile that we're looking for. They'll also then go and do things like injury checks to look at what the injury history is of each of these players, and even things like social media checks as well. That long list will then go to the video scouts, who will then look in more detail with their eye and look at they'll kind of look at clips against maybe better teams in the division, lower teams in the division. They'll look at full match as well, because obviously you want to see the positional play from the player, not just what he's like on the ball. And then that long list will get reduced into a bit of a short list, and then at that point I'll get passed to John, who's going to look at all the different clips, all the different data. He'll take it to Barry, they'll watch the clips together, and then that's when they'll start to look at, right, who's worth actually speaking to. They'll speak to the agent, find out what the finances are around that potential player as well, and basically that will come from what was a long list of 15, 20 players all the way down to maybe 2 or 3 players, and that's when basically the conversations will happen with agents as well about potentially signing.
I'm going to thank you there. It's a really, really full description, really, really useful to hear. I'm going to follow up by saying, in terms of where you're sitting, where John Potter is, and where Barry is, are you collectively feeling comfortable of where we're at just now?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, the squad is strong. We've got the core of a team that, based on how the last 10 games went, was really good. I think a few additions in there in key positions and we'll be in a very good place. I think we've also got a good manager as well. A lot of credit has to go to Barry about how we finished last season, because we know that ultimately what cost us in reaching the top 4 was that first quarter of the season. So since Barry's come in, he's absolutely got the best out of the squad that he had available to him. So between him and John, we're quite confident that they'll be strong in the recruitment, and then not just strong in the recruitment, but anyone we bring in, because we are looking also a bit at a younger profile as well, because we noticed that our squad average age was quite old and the older side of the division. So bringing in younger players who we think Barry will be able to develop really well.
The guys are back in a matter of days now. Are we likely to see anybody else rocking up and stealing a peg in that dressing room?
Hopefully, I mean, there's conversations going on every single day. Barry and John are in Starts Park today looking at different players. There's a player up earlier today as well, having a look around. So, I mean, every single day we're having conversations with Barry and John. They just got back from holiday, but we're still speaking to John every single day while he was away, and I'm sure he was speaking to Barry every single day. So nothing has stopped. So while it might have been a little bit quiet in the last couple of weeks, it's certainly not been quiet in the actual kind of recruitment practices. So with players due back on Monday, there's going to be, hopefully there'll be a little bit of movement in the next couple of days.
I'm interested in how the environment actually influences potential signings. You know, we know that there was a player up today having a look round. So actually the bit of the kind of the joke across supporters of, well, the laundry doesn't get you 3 goals a season, but actually the environment as it's laid out now was the first thing that Jay spoke to us on Saturday about. And we know that you're confident enough to say to guys, come up and have a look round. You spoke about the potential cooperation agreement, but actually, maybe not the laundry, but certainly the facilities for training and such can get a deal over the line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jade said that as well, that this is on par with EFL League One clubs, and that's exactly what it is. The facilities can be a real pull for players. I mean, they'll spend most of their days here training, preparing match day, so it's really important for the player that they're training in good facilities, because it also helps their development as well.
Who has the final say?
Barry.
It's clean as a whistle. Going back on that, let's finish off with a couple of things that are just really important, though they're maybe not tied into what happens in the pitch. Volunteer week is just finished there, and the club were really prominent, I would say, across Scottish football and taking the time to acknowledge effort, not only in terms of social media, but there was an event at Starts Park, there was a quiz, there was a kind of buffet and a bit of entertainment and such like. Talk to me about the role that volunteers play now, and I guess something that we always bang on about is the door's always open. Yeah,
that's exactly it. I mean, I got involved as a volunteer. I was a volunteer at the club before being in this position, and I think, like, you see it, like, the club can't operate without the network of volunteers, and it's something so important that we show the gratitude towards the volunteers, but also, like you say, show that it's an open door for more people to get involved, because I mean, you guys will know yourselves, so there's something very satisfying about helping your football club, being in a position where you can be in and around the club. You can also have an actual real positive impact on the progression and growth of the football club as well. And I think if we can get more volunteers in, and there was a bit of a call to arms in the strategy document for maybe more people to reach out, and we got really good feedback on that, and we're in the process of reaching out to each volunteer that got in touch. But there's so much that goes on at a football club, so there's so many different areas that people can help out. And yeah, we're always open to more people joining, but also we're really appreciative of the existing volunteers that help run this club every day.
What have we not covered? What were you arriving and expecting that have maybe not thrown at you, and vice versa? Is there anything you want to throw this way?
No, I mean, I think season tickets are going really well. That's another point. We're actually trending well above where we were at this point in 2023-24. We're a little bit behind last season, but to be honest, we're surprised how little we are behind that, considering last season there was probably a lot more momentum given how the season ended. But I think when I looked at it last week, we were only 10 behind over the same period of where we were last season. So we're over 2,000 season tickets sold now as well. There was obviously a little bit of an increase in the price, so the fact that we've still been able to sell so many is a real positive. Obviously, we needed to increase the price. It hadn't been increased in 2 years. We're still one of the lowest in the division, so we felt it was fair to put a little bit of an increase on that. But overall, season ticket sales are going really well. There is still a good feel good around the club, which is really important, considering last season was disappointing. Like, we were disappointed to finish 5th. I think the way we ended the season is what kind of keeps people very positive about what's to come ahead. But overall, I mean, we're really thankful for all the supporters that are still kind of showing up and showing their support to us as a board and to the players on the pitch and Barry. So long may it continue. We want to do the best for the football club. We want as many people to join the journey as well. The more people that get involved, whether it's volunteers or coming along, gives us this chance of the club and the community to have the best success.
Let's go back and we'll finish where we started, and that's your most important role here is that of a supporter.
Yeah.
So put your board head to one side. As a Raith Rovers supporter, what are you most looking forward to in this season?
The season to come back, to be honest. It's the last few weeks, you're working harder than you probably do during the season, but then you don't have the Saturday to look forward to. So really excited for the football to come back. But also, I mean, we've got a really good manager. It'll be interesting to see how much he can get out of not just the existing squad, but also the new players that are to join. And given how we ended last season, it does give us a lot of excitement of where this season could finish. I know I've been speaking about budgets being 5th and 6th, which might seem doom and gloom, but as I said, with season 2022-23, we absolutely didn't have the second budget and the biggest budget in the league, but we still gave it a really good shot and fell short within 5 or 6 games of Dundee United. So there's lots to be excited about. Good squad, great manager. Let's see what it brings.
Thanks for your time, your openness, and I hope you felt comfortable that you're going to come back as the season progresses.
Absolutely, and thank you guys for your time.